Before we do, I And so now at this time, we'll call our meeting to order. It's the August 14th, 2019 Columbus City Council meeting at 7:05 PM. And, I'm sorry? Oh, and the first thing will be the Pledge of Allegiance, so please stand and join us if you care to. And so the first item is letter B, the approval or a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second? And all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Then the motion passes. We're on to letter C, and this is a presentation, a public hearing and a motion for a lease agreement with the Columbus Lions, and then for the Columbus Lions liquor license for the Fall Festival dated September 14th, 2019. And so would you read the newspaper
Yes.
notice as it was written?
Yep. City of Columbus Public Hearing Notice Liquor License. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Columbus City Council on Wednesday, August 14th, 2019 at 7:00 PM or as soon thereafter as parties may be heard in the City Hall located at 16319 Kettle River Boulevard, Columbus, Minnesota, as required by City Code, to review a request by the license applicant for a one-day temporary on-sale liquor license. The hearing shall continue until all evidence and testimony has been received. The license applicant is the Columbus Lions Club. Property owner is the City of Columbus, a Minnesota municipality. Property location is 16319 Kettle River Boulevard, Columbus, Minnesota. Signed by Lori Spangler, Deputy Clerk. Published in the Forest Lake Times on August 1st, 2019, and posted on August 1st, 2019.
Thank you. So does that notice cover both?
The notice
Both hearings?
covers the public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing to see if there's any testimony. But first, we have a memo, and the facts will be presented. You can open the public hearing to the public. And then we do have a lease agreement. The lease agreement has to be approved before the liquor license because the lease allows the Columbus Lions to lease that property on which the liquor license then covers.
And so, starting over, we just opened the hearing first, and then,
I'll do the report.
okay. All right, so is there anyone here from the Lions who would like to come to the front, please, and explain what you're asking? And for the council, there's a good picture on A4, page 4. And the lease actually is on A1 in our amended packet. Good evening. Put your name and address, please, for the records.
I'm Richard Hauer from the Columbus Lions. I live in Lino Lakes.
Ryan Shervin from the Columbus Lions. I live in Hugo.
Gary Calise, Forest Lake, Minnesota.
And would you like to explain for the record what you're asking for tonight?
For a one-day license permit to sell beer and liquor at the Fall Fest.
All right. Mr. Counselor.
Okay, Mr. Mayor and Council, and that is consistent with the application we reviewed. There's a short memo on page 11 of your regular agenda. Essentially, the licensed premises is a beer garden, 42 by 32-foot fenced area, so that allows control of the liquor service. Obviously, the two things we always seek to prevent are underage drinking and overconsumption. So those are the two things that they'll be after, and that fenced-in area helps. We conducted background checks, the city did as part of the application, and Mr. is it Severin?
Shervin, yep.
Shervin, passed, I guess, with flying colors. So there you go.
To start.
There'll be security, as noted. There'll be staff with a guard table. We will have an insurance certificate providing liquor liability insurance coverage for the day. And then as Elizabeth Mersko mentioned, there is a very short form lease, which is required by statute. So when you're ready to, when your questions are answered and you're ready to approve, you'll address the lease first and then the license.
Under number 3 in the memo, it indicates that there's a recommendation, and letter A is the execution of the Columbus Fall Fest Lions lease for the premise for the 2019 Fall Fest event.
And before you act, you'll take any other public testimony.
Okay. Does anyone up here have questions of these three? I think we've all been to the Fall Fest. If not, go back to take your seats, and if there's anybody from the audience who would like to comment, anyone from the chamber who would like to come up and add anything? Hearing none, we'll close this portion of the hearing with the right to reopen it. And council, anything to add?
So we need to leave some space to start with? That's the first motion?
Yes, on page 12 are the two actions that you'll want to take. And so if you look at page 12, the first item is to approve execution of the lease with the Columbus Lions.
I'll make a motion to lease spot for the premises of the 2019 Fall Fest event.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. No, letter B.
The second motion would be to approve the liquor license, subject to all the conditions set forth in the City Code Chapter 4.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And so we're all set for the Fall Festival. Thank you. All right, we're on letter C, number 8, and this will be a presentation of the 2018 Columbus audit. I don't think this will be as fun as a beer garden, but yeah, it's in our packet in this big black book, which we don't have to read. These are just the facts. And so, would you state your name and address for the record, please?
I'm Peggy Moeller from Redpath and Company. Our office is downtown St. Paul.
Thank you.
So the 2018 audit has been completed and the reports are issued. There are 4 reports that are issued by the auditor in conjunction with the audit. There we go. Which are on this slide. The first one is the opinion on the fair presentation of financial statements. That report is contained in the bound document with all the financial statements. Then the other 3 reports are unbound stapled reports. And they are the report on internal control, the legal compliance report, and the communication with those charged with governance. And I will be going through each as we go through the slides.
Will you pull your microphone a little closer so everybody?
There, sorry.
Okay.
So we'll start with the opinion on the financial statements. Here it's important to remember that the financial statements are the responsibility of management. Our responsibility as auditor is to give an opinion on the fair presentation of those financial statements. We follow both GAAS, which is generally accepted auditing standards, and GAGAS, which is generally accepted government auditing standards in performing the audit. And our goal is to plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance that your financial statements are free of material misstatements. And the result of this year's audit is that you have once again received an unmodified or clean opinion on your financial statements. The next slide has some information from the financial statements for the general fund. The fund balance in the general fund increased $370,209 during 2018. On this slide, we have a budget to actual comparison of the activity in the fund. The first column is your final adopted budget. The middle column is your actual results, and the far right column is a variance between the two. If you look in the budget column, you see that you did have a balanced budget and that you did not expect a change in your fund balance. If you look in the variance column, you'll see that your revenues came in over budget by over $362,000. Your expenditures are also over budget by $196,000. Your transfers in were over budget by $500, and your transfers out were under budget by over $202,000. The significant variance for the revenue is licenses and permits came in over budget by over $221,000. And then the other significant variance has to do with refunds and reimbursements. That was $133,000, which is not budgeted. But that relates to the over budget in expenditures, in that the primary reason for that is the reimbursement or the reimbursable engineer, attorney, and planning, which also is not budgeted, and it kind of nets to that revenue. So when the refunds and reimbursements are over budget, you'd also your expenses be over budget as well, because they relate to each other. The next report is the report on internal control. Here it's important to know that we do not audit your internal control. However, we do consider it as we plan and perform the audit. Some of the procedures we do in this area is, first we start by obtaining narratives of your controls over major classes of transaction and account balances. And then we perform walkthroughs and other tests to see if you're following your controls and whether those controls are effective. The city did receive 2 internal control findings this year. The first one is lack of segregation of duties. You have received this for many, many years. It's very common. Small entities just don't have enough people to segregate all their duties. So it's just something you have to work with, but it's probably nothing you can get rid of because you don't have enough staff. The second finding is financial statement misstatements. This results whenever the auditors find misstatements that require journal entries during the audit. It's also a very common finding because governmental accounting is very complex, and it's very easy to miss something or make an error. The next report is the legal compliance report. This report summarizes the results of our testing of your compliance with Minnesota state statutes. Our tests are based on a checklist that's provided by the Office of State Auditor. There are 7 categories of testing that relate to cities, and they are deposits and investments, conflicts of interest, public indebtedness, bid laws, claims and disbursements, miscellaneous provisions, and tax increment. We did perform tests in each of these areas, and the result is another clean report and that you have no legal compliance findings. The last report is the communication with those charged with governance report. This is a fairly standardized report in that it contains all the communication we as auditors are required to make to the council at the conclusion of an audit. Includes such topics as whether you had any changes in accounting policies, which you did not this year. We also include in this report what we consider to be your most significant estimates that are in the financial statements, and they are land held for resale, which is over $2.7 million, and then your net pension liability was over $399,000, and then the related deferred inflows, outflows of resources, and pension expense. The pension liability is based on being a member of PARA for your staff, and it's all based on actual studies, and the numbers change significantly from year to year, so it's a true estimate based on how they change the pension plan and how the investments do during the year. The numbers can change significantly. We had encountered no difficulties in dealing with management. We had no disagreements with management. And then the last item here is that we do include other items within this report just to highlight them. both of which have been in this report in prior years. The first one has to do with deferred assessments. Approximately 55% of your assessments receivable at year-end are made up of Green Acre and senior citizen deferral, which means they are not being collected on a timely basis to pay your debt. So it's just something to be aware of, that you need to have another source of funding for your debt service for the bonds that we're relying on those assessment income. And then you also have interfund loans from the general fund to other funds. You did make a big improvement this year due to the sale of land and receiving a large amount of water availability charges. The loans went down from 1.6 million to just over 877,000. So you are making progress there. Looking forward, there are a number of Government Accounting Standards Board or GASB statements that require implementation in the next few years. The only one that I believe could affect the City of Columbus is GASB 87 on leases. That requires implementation in 2020, so it's right around the corner. And we're working with all our clients to make sure they're ready to implement it this fall, probably. With that, I'd like to thank Elizabeth and Bill for all their assistance during the audit, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Who has questions?
I just have one question. Net pension liability,
Yes.
$400,000. Why do we have a liability on pensions? I mean, PARA is the governing body on that, but why would we have 400,000 liability?
The Government Accounting Standards Board Statement 68 says that if you're a part of a multi-employer pension plan, which is what PARA is, you are required to book your share of their pension liability. So they send out a huge spreadsheet of all the pension liability broken down between all the cities, and you're required to book that. It's not something you would ever pay. It's just for financial reporting. What you have to pay is your required contribution, which you have been paying.
Anything else? Anyone?
Can you briefly give us a hint of what the change to the lease rules are?
Yes, currently, if you have an operating lease, say you rent something month to month, you can report it monthly. Now, if it's a term over a year, you have to set up a liability or a payable, depending upon whether you're a lessor or a leasee, and then amortize it. So it's more like you purchase something. It's more like a mortgage than it is a month-to-month thing. So it's more complicated than just paying the bill every month.
Okay. Thanks.
But we have to look to see if you have any leases, first of all, and if they're material. If they're small leases, there is a way not to have to do all that work.
Okay, good, thanks.
I have one small concern. So there are two issues that you found. One is that we're a small city. The same person writes a check, licks the stamp, and puts it in the mailbox. There's nothing you're going to do about that unless you hire several more people.
Correct.
And the other issue was there were some
Statements.
misstatements,
Yes.
things placed wrong.
Right.
Elizabeth, can you address why was that?
You know, in our accounting department, we had, early on, over the past 2 years, we've had consultants come in, then we hired a person, there was a change there, we hired a consultant back, and then in March, we hired our current accounting person. And so when you have that amount of change and not a lot of consistency in that department, it is hard because in fund accounting, there's a lot to learn and different people will do it differently. And I think we had a lot of people looking at our accounts and not everyone booking consistently. And so we had more journal entries this year than we've had in the past because of that.
And that should take care of itself just by having one or two people do it instead of 5 or 6 people.
Correct.
Put their fingers in the pie.
We've implemented a plan to remedy that, and we're going to do some training and some more oversight in order to address the issue.
And that's a reasonable answer
Yes.
from your point of view as the
Yes.
auditor.
Yes, I believe it's reasonable. And like I said, governmental accounting is very complex. It takes many years to learn all of it. So you can't expect someone to with turnover to come right in and do everything perfect.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
And now we need a motion to accept this.
Motion to accept the audit, the 2018 audit.
So I move to accept the 2018 audit as presented.
Oh, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And so how long until we begin on the 2019 audit?
We meet quarterly, and so we'll be, 3 months to audit time.
Hey,
All right.
Poor Bill.
So I would say thank you, Elizabeth and Bill.
He's here
and
tonight.
Way in the back.
Yep.
Apparently, both of these issues are not issues. And this year hopefully will be easier, faster, and more fun than last year. So thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so that was the hard part. And now we're on to number 9, which is the Planning Commission report. I believe Chris King is here from the Planning Commission. Please come up and tell us what you did.
Well, I didn't have to do DNR today, even though I was ready. The Planning Commission met August 7th, and that day we had 2 public hearings. One of them was for a preliminary plat for Rabine Estates, which was creating 2 new lots in the rural residential zoning district and a conditional use permit for planned unit development, CUP, PUD. Property owners are Lloyd and Deborah Rabine, and the applicant is with Seth Smith Knolting, who was represented by Sean Cupcho. Address is 9257 168th Avenue Northeast. The existing lot that the Rabines own, excuse me, is 15.27 acres. The Rabines want to subdivide, creating 2 new parcels. All the paperwork was submitted and complete. The 2 new parcels would be created along Kettle River Boulevard. Proposed Lot 1 would be 3.4 acres, Lot 2 would be 3.76 acres, which would leave Lot 3, which has an existing home on it, at 7.45 acres. We voted unanimously to approve the CUP for the Rural Residential District PUD development standards of lot averaging for the 2 proposed lots that are under 5 acres, and also for the dimensional variation of minimum lot width of 220 feet to 200 feet under the flexible dimension standard. Approval included all findings and facts and recommendations by the city, I'm losing my voice here, city planner and the city engineer. So, we approved it.
All right, can you zoom in on that, Elizabeth? Please.
You want to zoom in, or do you just want me to move it around so you can see it?
There was discussion on the driveway, and Anoka County handles the driveway on this, and I think one of the recommendations from Anoka County was that the driveways had to be 30 feet from the common lot line, which I know the applicant had said they'd revise the plan to do that. But speaking with Elizabeth, she was saying too that they kind of work with the county as it comes up when the sites are developed.
And one additional comment is when we have, as we do here, there's a driveway serving the property from the cul-de-sac that you can just sort of see at the bottom. We would have as a condition of approval that there be a driveway agreement. And the reason we do that is to make sure that when someone's using city right-of-way, they're responsible for providing safe access to the parcel. And so that's a condition wherever we have someone's driveway over city right-of-way.
That's not improved.
That's not improved, correct?
So in this case, you have the new preliminary plat that shows the new driveway locations. This was in the agenda packet. This is the older one where you had, this is what was before the Planning Commission, where you had a driveway access here and a driveway access here. The new preliminary plat shows that the driveway accesses will be shared, and the county did require that they're within 30 feet of the property line, that both driveways be placed as a shared access, but independent driveways. So the new preliminary plat shows both driveways coming in from this location to serve both lots. And as our attorney outlined, this is the driveway access to the lot that's in the back. This is an existing driveway. It comes off the cul-de-sac, and it's a not improved roadway, which is why we're asking for the driveway maintenance agreement, because it's a driveway over what I would call a paper road. It's on paper, but it's not improved. So the only improvement is the driveway, which is here. So when that happens, we require the property owner to plow it, maintain it, make sure there's either gravel or blacktop or whatever surface material they use over our public easement.
Does anyone have any more questions about this?
In this particular case, you'll have two motions. One is a conditional use permit for a residential plan unit development, as Mr. Rabine has asked for 2 deviations in this particular case. And then secondly, it would be a preliminary plat approval, subject to those deviations.
Would someone like to make the motion?
And those would be subject to the conditions that are contained in the staff report and attached in your packet.
What page is that? Maybe we should look at it.
Page 36.
No, there's a lot of them.
And including the additional condition regarding driveway maintenance.
And that's for the second motion?
For the first motion. You know, I just volunteered, didn't I?
Go ahead, take it.
So I would move to approve the, which comes first, PUD or CUP?
So it's a conditional use permit for plan unit development.
Okay, I would move to approve the application for a conditional use permit for planned unit development, subject to the recommendations, staff recommendations found on page 36 of our packet, and also the condition, the driveway maintenance agreement that was not in the recommendations, but brought up in the discussion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
The second motion would be to approve the preliminary plat for the Rabine Estates.
So moved.
And those conditions are on page 35.
With conditions on page 35.
So it has been moved and seconded. Everyone want to take a look at, on page 35 quick? And I'll call for a vote.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Then it passes. Where's Lloyd? You got it. Thank you, Lloyd. All right, what else did you talk about?
We had a public hearing to consider an amendment to Chapter 7B sign regulations, Section 7B-310, the I-35 corridor large off-premise sign. Sign companies Schubert, Hoy, and Clear Channel Outdoor, there was representatives from both of those companies that spoke at the public hearing, and they were very opposed to what we've put out there as a kind of preliminary ordinance, amendment to the ordinance. And they requested that we continue the public hearing, and we did decide unanimously as the Planning Commission to continue it until August 21st. And that was so that more time was given for all parties to respond, and they really would like us to keep the ordinance the same way as it is. I do have a question, if I can ask a couple legal questions to our city attorney. We got different letters from legal counsel, and kind of threatening, that one of them was that we were in violation of Minnesota Statute 117.184, compensation for removal of legal nonconforming use. And is the city in violation of this? From my understanding, an IUP has an end date. And I kind of looked up the statute for an IUP, and it is a temporary use of property until a particular date, is what I see. I think we're all concerned on the Planning Commission legally, you know, is the city faced with lawsuits, and is this something we need to consider? And I know sometimes people put out attorney letters, and they like to try and scare you. We just want to know where we stand.
And I would like to take a look at I haven't seen the letters, and I'd like to see what kind of claims they make. The provision that's referenced is where, in exchange for a permit, someone says, well, you have to remove that legal nonconforming use. So we have some billboards that are actually under conditional use permits, so they're a permanent use. And they, could be, they can exist so long as they're not destroyed more than 50%. In the case of the interim use permits, that's the reason they were set up on an interim use, so that they could expire at some point. And so that was the council's determination 20 years ago, that there may come a day when those permits should expire and not be extended. And so that's not the removal of a legal nonconforming use, that's the removal of a temporary use that's now expired. So I'm pretty comfortable with that, but I'd like to see the arguments that have been made and see how we respond.
And could we get direction from Bill's response before the next meeting on that then, too?
Yes.
Okay, that would be perfect,
Okay?
yes. So we'll continue that public hearing at the next Planning Commission. We did hold a special meeting on Monday, the 5th, and this was kind of to discuss what's going on in the northeast quadrant with the apartment complex, looking at their design. Right now, we don't have design standards for a mixed-use area, and we need to develop them and develop them quickly. One thing we did decide is we don't want to set design standards with not thinking about them. We want durable, nice products that last a long time. We did kind of direct Elizabeth with enough information to keep the apartment developer going, and we do have further work to do on that. So we're still in the process of developing those, and we talked about landscaping, renewable energy, fencing, retaining walls, sight lining, and signage. Signage is probably going to be a bigger item to talk about, because it sounds like they're wanting some bigger signs for the development there. So we'll have to look at that, but we're all kind of in agreement that we'd like to keep consistent materials and a consistent theme going through there, and have nice products, things that last, things that within a couple years won't be looking like they're aging and showing age. So that's kind of where we're at.
Very good.
Anything I need to bring back, or anything on the sign ordinance or direction?
Anyone?
No.
No? Thank you.
Perfect.
We're up to number 10, public open forum. Would anyone like to come up and speak?
Dan Mike, 15123 Hornsby Street. I'm here tonight to find out where the city stands on their comp plan. I know last fall, the old council was going to make some changes. A couple of us landowners asked to be rezoned from commercial retail to light industrial. So where does the city stand at this point?
Elizabeth?
So, a little bit of terminology. So the 2040 comp plan talks about land use, and that's what Dana is referring to, land use, not zoning, because our comp plan hasn't come back from Met Council, so we're unable to do zoning at this time. The 2040 plan has been submitted to Met Council, and when we submitted in December, they reviewed it, and we got a letter back from them in January, and indicating in that letter, there were several things that they wanted us to address. 80% of it was more about tables and little tweaking here and there, but about 20% of it was really based on policy. And one of those things was land use, more specifically, where we were going to put residential uses in the commercial district, because we had submitted it with an overlay district, and they did not like that concept. And so we had a little bit of work cut out for us as to where we wanted to designate residential uses. So what this council did is they held several workshops, and during those workshops, they realized that they perhaps wanted to explore the opportunity to have more of a mixed use designation or land use designation in the comp plan, which was a departure from the plan in December. In December, we had two different land uses, which was light industrial and commercial, and the rest of the community was rural residential, with the exception of Lake Drive, and there's a small commercial area there. So with the discussion that we had, we designated 3 different areas that were a mixed use, which was mixed use based on residential, high-density residential. So we had a high-density residential area, a medium-density residential area, and a low-density residential area. We had a neighborhood meeting with the people on Humber Street off of Lake Drive, because we redesignated an area there for low-density mixed-use district. And then in the Freeway District, we designated the northeast quadrant as a high-density mixed-use district. And then also westerly of Zurich Street is also a mixed-use, but a lower density for housing. And we removed the housing from the southeast area of the comp plan. The other thing that was discussed was this council felt that the boundaries for the commercial industrial area were adjusted. And at that time, we knew Hy-Vee was coming in and a few other developments. And they felt, for compatibility purposes, they felt that the commercial line between industrial and commercial should be 145th in your area. And so currently, the 2040 plan shows that north of 145th as an underlying land use designation as commercial, and south as a light industrial land use district.
So if I'm following you, for terminology purposes, we're still under that commercial retail use in my area and like Mr. Stanky's area, correct?
You're under a commercial use. Commercial retail is your zoning district. When the comp plan is approved, I'm thinking that because we have 9 months to make our comp plan compatible with our local codes, I do believe this council will probably look at the zoning districts, and I think that they will change some of those designations for zoning districts. I don't know what that will be, but we have talked about a little bit more latitude, because we only have 3 zoning districts in the Freeway District.
So do you have a new map of the zoning districts, these 3 different zoning districts that somebody could see?
We haven't gotten the comp plan back, approved comp plan, so we can't start on creating new zoning districts until it comes back. And Met Council gives us 9 months to create those zoning districts.
But you must have something in writing, kind of preliminary of what's taking place now?
I can show you, I'm going to grab it out of my office, the land use plan.
And I guess while Elizabeth is doing it, myself and Mr. Stanky were in last fall with the old council, and requested a zoning change, and I'll keep you using zoning change, just for lack of better words right now. So the council, the previous council was on board with it. After, and some of the new council members weren't there, but after years of discussion with roundtable discussions with the neighborhood, with Heidela, I believe, Elizabeth, is that her? She's even said that we've had too much commercial retail over there. There's nothing going on over there. So we need to do something different. And I know there's been some activity over there, and some people kicking around, but what they would like to do would fit more into the light industrial. So I guess I'm here tonight hoping that this new council will listen to the people over there and move forward with, again, the light industrial. I know that's not what's called today, but that's what we would like to see over there. Again, nothing's happening, so it's time to change. If a car lot has 10 Buicks on the lot, do you think they're gonna bring 10 more Buicks in if them 10 couldn't sell? They're gonna do something different. So it's time, we need to lighten up and get some people in there and get some tax base going on. And then I believe the future will dictate really what happens over there. It's no different than when Best Buy came down on 35W and 494 down there. You get a big hitter in, and they're gonna dictate what's gonna happen. But in the interim, we need to get some things going on, and I believe that the light industrial will get things going over there.
So just as an overview, this is the map that was adopted. This is the high density for mixed use. This is the new district for mixed use for, and when I say mixed use, it's for residential and business at 20 units per acre. So you can have a business or a residential area that has housing in it, but at 20 units an acre. And then again, this is the high density area for both housing and residential use. The red area and the areas that are outlined, this now is a red area, and so is this area. And the rest is light industrial. So when we talk about land use, it's an underlying use of land. And so the red is commercial and the purple is light industrial. Then as soon as the comp plan is approved, then we come in as a city and we say, well, this is going to be the commercial retail, this is going to be the commercial showroom, this could be, and I don't know, business freeway, and we can break it up into different zoning districts, and then we determine what type of uses should be in those zoning districts based on land use, meaning commercial uses and industrial uses. And it creates a hierarchy of what you think is compatible in each district. So while the comp plan is kind of your big vision, the more detailed work is your zoning districts, and we have not done the more detailed work because our comp plan hasn't been approved yet. So, and I realize it doesn't say, it's not red, this is the only map I have right now of it, but again, all of this area was commercial, including this, and so we have the industrial area here and up to here. Now, this originally was a suburban overlay, and we removed the suburban overlay from the southeast area.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I want to clarify, though, as you see the handwritten note, that was your action before the comp plan went in to retain that area as commercial. I think the important thing for the property owners is to stay tuned, stay involved in the discussion of how that gets implemented in zoning, to see whether this council wants to create flexibility. It's not designated light industrial, and I think we have to be clear about that, because that's what went into the Metropolitan Council, and that's what's reflected in that action of April 29th. So when faced with the question of, do you want to expand the light industrial district to the north, this council took that action and said, no, we want it to be commercial. However, that, as the city administrator has pointed out, that doesn't mean that it can't be broken down into separate commercial districts, with the commercial districts to the south having more flexibility in terms of the type of uses than, say, those right at the freeway interchange. So I wanted to clarify that action that this body took, but also indicate, as Elizabeth said, those decisions will be made ultimately in the fine grain through zoning. And you and the other property owners really should be involved in that discussion as it goes forward.
Well, we have been involved in the last 4 or 5 years, again, with multiple roundtable discussions, multiple neighborhood meetings. The council knows the feelings over there, and I have notes here that can prove that stuff, and I believe Elizabeth does too, that what we would like to see, and Elizabeth, you see it every day with people coming in the doors here, wanting to do things over there, but they can't, you know, so it's trying to happen, but you keep putting the roadblocks up for people. So I don't agree, and I don't know who made that motion to move that, to remove that, again, I'll use the word light industrial, I apologize, to move that out and move that down. You know, we were originally talking about my neighbor to the south, Mr. Parson, light industrial, all mine, and then that's it, to my north property line. And then Mr. Stanky, all of his up to the industrial park that's there now, where the trailer place and the boat place are in there. To me, it only makes sense. The light industrial's there already, with the boat place, the trailer places in there, and the other stuff that's in the towing companies and whatever else. It only makes sense. It would fit right in there. You ain't gonna have no big box store going right there right now. So, and some of you don't recall, I did have a proposal on the table about 3, 4, 5 years ago with a company who wanted to come in. They seen the challenges that I was starting to face against, and they ran. And I don't agree. The city should welcome these people with open arms. So you just chase people away, and you chased somebody, a perspective I had, away. So, again, I'll stay tuned. The council knows how I feel. I've been speaking to Mr. Stanky about this. He feels the same way. Some of us don't have all the time to dedicate up here like we should. But I'm speaking tonight to tell the council what I would like to see and what Mr. Stanky would like to see as well.
All right.
And one more thing, I guess I'm a little bit, I'm disappointed at a couple of council members here that were on the previous council that didn't really stand up to all these neighborhood meetings and all the other stuff we had going on. They knew our feelings about this, but they didn't stand up and speak on our behalfs about this. So, that's all I got. Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience care to come up and speak?
Hello, I'm Cindy Hansen, and I am running for Anoka County Commissioner, District 6, and I wanted to come and be at one of your council meetings and introduce myself and find out what's going on here in Columbus. And you're going to think, well, what can I offer the board? And I can tell you, I'm married to my husband Doug Hansen for 32 years, and we have a 25-year-old daughter. And if that doesn't confirm to you that I have great negotiating skills, I don't know what else will. And I've been employed by Independent School District 621 for 19 years. My husband and I bought our home in Lino Lake 6 years ago with the intent of making it our home and moving here. But as the mayor of Spring Lake Park, I was required to spend 51% of my time in Spring Lake Park, and I was very happy to do so because I believe in completing what you start. And we had all of these projects that weren't completed yet that I wanted to get going. And if you looked at Spring Lake Park now, compared to 10 years ago, I'd hope you'd be as proud as I am of what we've accomplished. It includes $55 million of redevelopment for Anoka County, including a Hy-Vee grocery store. So I'm very, very proud, and we did it together. And while I was doing that, my husband spent about 90% of his time here in Lino Lakes, which is probably why we're still married for so long, but we fell in love with the community, and we are thrilled that we're able to live here now full-time. We had established just fantastic friendships also while I commuted back and forth and he lived here. Being mayor 9 years has given me irreplaceable experience in negotiating, balancing budgets, prioritizing, thinking outside of the box, but most importantly, listening to people and giving people a voice. As a mayor living in a small community, I understand the difference between small, rural, and large communities. I am running for Anoka County Commissioner because I feel that the board has done a great job of living up to its mission, of servicing residents in a respectful, innovative, and fiscally responsible manner. I have actually delivered results and can contribute to further that mission. I've been mayor of a small community, and I realize that District 6 has diverse areas, both suburban and rural, each having its own unique personality, and I love and respect that. As the Anoka County Commissioner of District 6, I will represent each and every one of these communities, not just one city. So thank you for your time. I hope that you'll check me out on Facebook. It's Cindy Hansen for Anoka County Commissioner, and that's Hansen with an E-N. And if you have any questions, my phone number is 763-482-2834. And I sure hope to earn the support of this council and the residents of Columbus. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm going to sit here and listen to the rest of the council meeting if that's all right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the audience would like to be heard?
Hi, I'm Sil Nyhart, 18516 Vassar Street, Forest Lake, Minnesota. Hello to the new people. I am up here because I would like to request that the council put on the agenda that we develop some no truck hauling routes in our neighborhood. As far as I'm concerned, it'd be 181st Notre Dame to Broadway, 181st to Kettle River, Tulane, and Bender Street, and Vassar Street. I understand that that was a very effective thing that Wyoming did when they put that no-haul route in there, no truck hauling. Of course, people that own trucks or have services come into their neighborhood, they can have trucks come in and do cement jobs and all that. But I'm talking dump trucks and side dumpers. So I would like to, I'm not sure how to do it, I'll talk to Elizabeth in the next few days, and I'd like to get on the agenda. I just wanted to give you a heads up that I think that would be a very popular option for us at this time. Okay? Thank you.
Can I just ask the attorney what he thinks of that idea? Is that something you can do or can't do, or off the top of your head, you don't want to answer it?
I probably wouldn't answer off the top of my head, although we certainly have a lot of experience in this community with hauling. Certain routes, county routes for certain, are available for hauling, and certain collector roads within our classification system are available for hauling. Beyond that, residential streets can be restricted, and the engineer and I have both worked on those issues many times over the years. So we could give you more direction once we know kind of exactly what's proposed.
Anyone else wish to be heard? If not, we will move on to number 11 on our first page here. And this is Mr. Joe McPherson, engineer for Anoka County, is here to talk with us about our joint powers agreement on the Hornsby Street improvements.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and fellow council members. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. We're finally reaching the end of the road here of a long period of getting these projects out the door, so I want to congratulate your staff. It's been fun to work with them, and I think it's been a good opportunity for Anoka County as well. So before you tonight, you have a joint powers agreement that essentially is an instrument to allow the city and county to transfer funds, and it spells out the responsibilities and so forth in relation to the Hornsby Street realignment reconstruction project that'll take place beginning this fall and into the spring of next year. And so this one's a little unique in the fact that Anoka County is going to be the sponsor of this project, so we're advertising it currently. We're going to open and receive bids, and we're going to hold the contract with the contractor on behalf of the city, which is somewhat unique. It happens throughout the state, but in this case, since the LRIP dollars that both the county and the city fought for, they were awarded on behalf of the city to Anoka County. So because of that, we actually need to be the sponsor for the project. So this JPA essentially spells that out on page, I'm sure you guys have looked at it, but essentially on page 2 and 3, it gets into the details of how the money will be transferred. So essentially, like I said, we will open the bids and award the project, which is proposed for September 10th, which would be the first board meeting in September. There's a few things we need to get done before that. This is one of them. I'll get into the other one here in a minute. But essentially, we'll request money from the city once the bids are opened and awarded. So, and we'll work with city staff on that. The cooperative agreement funds, we're currently working with your staff right now and the state of Minnesota to develop that cooperative agreement, formal agreement. It's a 3-party agreement between MnDOT, the city, and Anoka County, and it spells out maintenance responsibilities that the city will have between the state and them, or you in this case. And it also spells out the contractual obligations between Anoka County, the city, and the state as far as the funding goes. So this is step 1. Basically signing this says that you agree that the project's important, and it spells out what the funding mechanisms are for this project. So that's pretty much a quick summary on this one. Any questions on this agreement in particular before I go on?
Go ahead.
Okay, good. So like I said, the next step is going to be that cooperative agreement. So that's currently being prepared by MnDOT. There's a boilerplate that they use, and this case is actually going to be a 3-party agreement like I spelled out. So what'll happen with that is, since the city was the recipient of the cooperative agreement funds, the funds are actually going to be allocated to the city in an account at the state, and then the city is going to be able to request withdrawal of those funds once the project's awarded. And then the contract starts. And so the city will request those funds, and then in turn, pay the county those funds, so the project can continue. So, of course, we're going to keep the project going in the meantime, but that's what will happen behind the scenes. So that'll be the next step, and that'll come before you at the next
28th
council
meeting.
meeting. Yep. So we're actually going to approve that cooperative agreement if we can get all the ducks in the row at the August 27th board meeting, and then you guys will be the next night. So that'll be step 2. Step 3 will be the county is actually going to hold a LRIP agreement between us and the state, and that'll help orchestrate the transfer of LRIP dollars on behalf of the city. So those will come straight to the county. So 3 agreements for 1 project, all done in a matter of a month. So we're on track, though. That's the good news.
And so what we need tonight is a motion.
Motion to approve the joint powers agreement contract, and the contract number is in the upper right-hand corner, and it's contract 0007377.
Motion to approve the joint powers contract, number C0007377.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yep.
One other thing I'll add too, so the county is actually gonna hire TKDA to represent us as the contract administrator. I'll be involved, but we're actually gonna hire Dennis's team to administer the project, so they'll be out in the field on behalf of the city. So any sort of technical questions, if there's, as they're starting construction, if they run into certain issues out in the field, we'll work closely with Dennis and his staff on addressing those concerns so they meet the city's requirements. So we look forward to beginning.
Very good.
Thank you, guys.
Yep, thank you. Number 12, everyone, the engineer's report. Dennis?
Yes, good evening. The first item on the agenda under the engineer's report is a pay request number 1 for the 2019 street improvements. So the vast majority of the work has been done. There's a few minor punch list items remaining, so we're going to hold back a little bit of the budget. The bid was $413,000 overall. This pay request is for $380,933.36. Looking for a motion to approve pay request number 1 to Knife River in that amount.
So moved.
And the second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
The next item was a resolution for a MnDOT limited use permit for the trail on Trunk Highway 97, basically across the bridge. I'd like to pull that one. There's some language I want to go over with MnDOT. It's a standard cookie cutter agreement, but it implies the city's building the project, but MnDOT's building the project, so I want to make some modifications to that.
Yeah.
Pull it to the next meeting.
Can I ask you a question on 181st? And,
Yep.
The saw cutting, I didn't think they did it quite right. Were they redoing the saw cutting, or what were they doing with it?
They're going to be.
Gonna redo it?
They're going to redo a lot of it on 181st. On Notre Dame, it was okay. The next item is a resolution for no parking on Notre Dame Street. And that is on the east side of Notre Dame. Let me get the exact limits here. Between 172nd and Broadway Avenue.
At our last council meeting, Jim Winningstead, our public works superintendent, showed the council an area that there were signs posted, and we weren't quite sure how the signs got posted by the elementary school right by the ball field. And this is the resolution coming back to the council in order to put up city signage for no parking. And Jim has asked for the signage to be from 172nd through West Broadway. That would be in front of the school and in front of the church.
How many signs is he looking for?
I don't know how many signs would you put up?
I don't know what that exact length is, but, you know, it's just they're spread out at a more distance than obviously what the school had put up. I don't know how many exactly that is.
I think it was in the half a dozen range.
They put up a half a dozen within a very short distance.
They'll be spaced a little differently.
Yeah.
And are there numbers for this resolution?
Yes, it's Resolution 1918.
Anyone like to make it?
I'll make a motion to accept the resolution 1918.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
The next item was informational. You may get notices, I'm not sure if you're part of the MnDOT Design Build Project notifications, but the latest information we have is that starting this Friday, the northbound ramps will close for up to 40 days. So northbound from I-35 getting off to 97, northbound from 97 getting on 35 would both be closed for up to 40 days. So if you want to go westbound on 23 or Lake Drive, you'd have to go up to Broadway. If you're coming from the south, you go up to Broadway, get off, come back, and then you can get off southbound. Northbound, I believe the detour is just getting off on Broadway.
Are they behind on this project?
Yeah.
Quite a bit, or?
They're doing other work, but this ramp closures were scheduled a couple months ago. Due to the shortage of cement and concrete, trying to get barges up the flooded Mississippi River. Some projects have been delayed. But they're still on schedule, as far as I know, to have the entire project done by November.
Seems like they're way behind to me. I haven't laid any cement for concrete for quite a while.
Yeah, I'll try to get a better update at the next traffic meeting they have. The last item was just, again, general project updates. And the only project I wanted to touch on was Hornsby Street that Joe had mentioned. And it is out to bid. The county will receive bids on the 27th and take it to the county board second week in September. Hopefully it'll be under construction by the third week of September approximately. Those numbers in the JPA for the project estimate, that 2.2 million, that came from us. And we bumped those numbers up based on bid prices that have been coming in. Hopefully that number will come in lower because the project is split, part this fall, part next spring. Hopefully that'll allow contractors to have some better unit prices. And that's all I had for this evening.
Thank you. Number 13, attorney's report. Bill?
Mr. Mayor and Council, 3 items that relate to Hy-V's development, and maybe ask Mr. Phil Hoy to come up in case there are questions. The first item is in your additions packet, A15, page A15. It would be resolution number 1919. We have a tentative closing date of next Tuesday. We're putting closing documents together. That's why I say it's tentative, because they can slip a day or two. But essentially, we're ready to close with Hy-V, which is great news. And thanks to Mr. Hoy and others for getting us to this point. So the first item we need to have you look at and approve is Resolution 1919, which essentially authorizes the sale. Are there questions about that?
A resolution, 1919, a resolution approving the sale of real estate property to Hy-V. Make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you for that. And so the city will be receiving, in round numbers, I don't have the exact number, but about $660,000, if I've calculated that correctly, the purchase price. So we're no longer under confidentiality since this purchase agreement is signed and we're ready to go to closing. So that's very good news for those who have been waiting for a transaction like this in that quadrant. And we hope that it will lead to others. So the next item that relates to that is the development agreement. I'm just going to run through a couple of things that are noteworthy and make one correction. First of all, if you just flip, if you would, to page 2 of the development agreement, that's A17 of your additions. Under conditions of approval, we have not only the typical conditions of approval, but using the planned unit development process, there were deviations that were previously approved as part of the planned unit development. Those show up in Exhibit B, and they'll run with the property. And I point that out because this isn't the first time we've had deviations, but it's one of the first in a commercial setting like this, and those will run with the Hy-V property and be effective on that property. I just point that out because that's how we bring those of record, put them against the property by incorporating them in the development agreement. The next thing I would point out that's a little bit unusual is roadway access on the same page, at the bottom of the page, section 4. Schaefer Company has been very cooperative in relocating the driveway so that it's no longer on what will be the Hy-V property. Remember, the driveway for the batch plant was Old Hornsby Road. They're the only entity that was taking access. Now, if need be, Hy-V can, under this provision, take access to that driveway if they need to for survey purposes and other purposes until the new Hornsby is built. So I just point that out. We did get Schaefer to move their driveway, or essentially our driveway that they're using, but also they agreed to indicate through an estoppel that they have no interest in that property going forward. The next thing I wanted to point out in the development agreement is on page 4 of the development agreement, A19 of the additions. There you will see the water connection charges, which are significant. Remember that much of the water system is built through connection charges, and so that's an amount of $33,000. The SAC, just an estimated amount, will be in the $3,000 range for the sanitary. So the combined local charges will be roughly, we don't have the final calculations, $36,000. In addition to that, Hy-V has agreed to pay its share of special assessments for the improvements that we've described, some of the improvements that have been described tonight. That amount is $163,420. The balance of the assessments would be against what is now city property under contract by JAMP for full development. So those are contributions that will come to the city in addition to the purchase price, and I wanted to point that out. And now comes the correction, which I'm surprised Mr. Hoy didn't catch me on, because we had, on page 6, we had you paying $69,000 of park fees when it's actually $762.50. So.
I'll check with my accountant on that.
Yeah. So, just testing you.
Yeah.
But that amount, if you'd please insert that, and we'll certainly put it in the final contract, is $762.50. It's a park fee that's paid by, whether it's commercial or residential, we have a standard, that's one unit of park fee. By contrast, if the multifamily project comes through, they will pay significantly more, that same number times the number of dwelling units. So wanted to make that correction this evening. And with that, we'll take any questions you have on the development agreement.
Anybody?
And while you're taking a look at that document, I would note that as of this afternoon, we completed work on the only exhibit that you don't see here is the design framework. We completed work on that today, and we would just provide that as information to the council. Just to explain what that is, the design framework really goes beyond the city's minimum requirements. So the minimum requirements are in the CR district, and then because this is a master plan development, the developer, along with Hy-Vee, has agreed to a certain set of design framework standards that provide for uniform landscaping and fencing and lighting and signage. And so that has been going back and forth for probably about 2 months and will be incorporated in this document. I'm happy, since the council's in discussions about what the Northeast is going to look like, I'm happy to provide that to you for your discussions.
Okay. Anyone have anything for the attorney or Mr. Hoy?
Phil, I have one question for you, because I've been asked this a number of times. Do you have any idea when Hy-Vee will start construction, or when you will be open?
I do not have a projected start date at this time. But I never do. So that's not unique to Columbus. I've never answered that question.
But they're buying the property, so that means
We are
they're
buying
gonna-
the property.
They're going to build something.
Yes. Correct.
Would someone like to make the motion?
And the motion is what?
To approve the developer agreement.
Okay, so moved.
And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Yeah, and, I do apologize that you're getting these documents as additions. I know that's not your preference, but we wanted to facilitate a closing next Tuesday. Otherwise, we would be waiting till after the last meeting in the month. So that's a little bit of my rationale for having them here this evening, and also why I wanted to walk you through them. So if you had concerns.
Did we need to call out that correction in that motion?
I think I think we got that in the minutes.
Parkland fee?
The parkland.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, and the last document is an access agreement, and that's attached. The thing that you can, to help you visualize what we're talking about, there is an exhibit, and it is exhibit, let's see, Exhibit C on A42. And what you'll see there is a little crosshatch area. Now, remembering back to when the site plan was approved several months ago, Hy-Vee's kind of northwest access point is a driveway that aligns and adjoins with the city property, which is proposed to be developed as commercial. And, some of the best traffic flow is when it's parcel to parcel rather than forcing people back out onto the street. And so Hy-Vee requested this access easement agreement as part of the development package. We reviewed it, we negotiated it. Essentially, it provides, it benefits and burdens each parcel. So it's really a two-way agreement. It's not just providing access to Hy-Vee, it provides access in the other direction as well. For that reason, we're not proposing compensation for the easement, but I wanted, I wanted you to have the opportunity to indicate whether that's appropriate. We feel it is because it provides not only two-way access between the parcels, so it both benefits our parcel as a city parcel and it burdens it, but it also provides an additional element of access, which is to the city fire hydrant on Highway 97, which would not be accessible unless we could get through Hy-Vee's parcel. So a couple times a year, the Public Works Department would be maintaining that fire hydrant, making sure it's working properly, and this agreement incorporates that access as well. For that reason, we're not recommending compensation, but I didn't want to have you approve this and then later ask, well, why aren't we getting paid for it? So if you're comfortable with that, then we would have you also approve this document as well.
Anyone have any discussion? I feel I'm comfortable with it. Would someone like to make the motion, please?
Just to approve the document?
The access easement agreement.
Motion to approve the access agreement.
Seconded? Anyone?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Mr. Mayor, the last thing that I just noted earlier in your discussion at the EDA, there was a discussion about walkability. And so Mr. Hoy is involved in the Hy-Vee development, but also in the larger development. And so I'd let him know that that was an issue that was discussed at the EDA. It's also been discussed at the Planning Commission. And so ultimately, as plans unfold for the multifamily, as plans unfold for the other commercial lots, the council and the Planning Commission are going to be looking to the developers to help address that issue of walkability.
I can throw a few comments on there if you'd like. Actually, the conversation about the cross-access easement kind of plays into all that, because the idea is that this is a integrated center where there's cross-access amongst parcels, whether that's pedestrian or vehicular access amongst parcels. And so that's what that document sets up, establishes the cross-access, not just even through that access area right there. That document actually gives us the right not just to travel across it, but actually even to build it if it's not built before we get there. In most cases, we would ask for compensation because we're building, in this case, on the seller's property, a road that's going to benefit the seller in the future. That's not the case here. We're just going to build it at our expense and have access to it, a secondary access, which is beneficial, of course, to our use. It's never good just to have one access point for a commercial user. But again, it establishes some cross-access, and the document also just more largely establishes cross-access amongst all of the parcels for our customers, for the customers of other parcels and other uses. So our goal, reflective of this document, and our vision for the whole center is that there's cross-access, that there's walkability, and that an old friend of mine who was employed similarly as I am used to say that a pedestrian is just somebody who gets out of their car and walks. But I do see that is how the center will work to some extent, because there's not a great deal of density around this center, save for the future apartments. It will be important for the apartments to have access to the uses on either side of Hornsby. And I think that's something that we're going to have to think very closely about, is how we safely get pedestrians across New Hornsby to some of those retail uses. And we've had some discussions about that. I think those are going to be ongoing as we try to determine what's the best way to do that, because there are some limitations on where those sidewalks can be placed. So we'll need to be careful about that. Our vision is the same as the city's vision in terms of that walkability and accessibility. But I do think that a majority of the foot traffic that we'll see will be between parcels of uses, being able to go from one user on this whole project and development to the other uses and users. So we share, like I said, we have the same vision that you do, so.
And I was asked earlier, are you thinking sidewalks or walking trails?
I would assume sidewalks. I think it just depends on, and the uses and the massing of those uses, on what exactly, but I would envision more sidewalks than trails. Trails, it depends on where the trail ends and where it leads to. If there's a bigger system, then I would say trails make really good sense. So I think it just depends on what else it could connect to.
Anything else, Bill?
That's all I have.
Anyone have any more? Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
We'll see you Tuesday.
See you Tuesday.
Hopefully.
I should just move up here.
It's a beautiful area.
It is.
All right, then we are on to the mayor and city council members' report. Danny, anything?
I had a phone call from a gentleman down on Jordale Street last week about, see if the council could check in and changing the speed limit. I don't know if you, did anybody else have a call from Mr.
I did,
Smith?
called me too.
And I went down, I'm familiar with the road, but I went down, drove, and it's pretty windy. I mean, it's houses, so we have to do how to go about doing this, a request.
In this particular case, if you direct the engineer, myself, and Jim to work together, we can look to see if it would meet the statutory requirement that allows the council to pass a resolution to lower the speed limit from 55 to 30. If it doesn't meet that requirement, then your other option is to get the Minnesota Commissioner or the Department of Transportation Commissioner to do a speed study, and then they would look at the different criteria they have and lower the speed limit. But I think our first avenue would be to see if the driveways did meet the criteria and they were close enough in order to get a 30-mile-an-hour posting. And if you thought that was appropriate, and I also got the phone call for Joe Drell, and if you think it's appropriate, then we would look at that area from Joe Drell to 137th and continuing on Joe Drell. It is an unusual situation there where you have a northerly road that it makes an immediate left turn, but there is no stop sign, which makes up 137th, and then continues on to Joe Drell. And I think, Dennis, if we could look at discretionary signs, and I don't know if any are up there as far as the speed at which you would take those turns up there, because I think, according to what I've heard, there's an issue with people going through that area, and we try to address it by taking trees down for more visibility, but now they've indicated it's really more a question of speed. The other issue that they seem to have here is there seems to be more traffic on 4th Street, and they feel that because there's not a sign that says no outlet, they feel that people think if they continue north, that somehow they'll continue to get to Lake Drive. But in this particular case, the road does not continue to Lake Drive because we don't have that one area of a roadway between 141st and Joe Drell. And so they feel that they have a lot of traffic in that neighborhood simply turning around, going back to Pine Street, and then going out to Lake Drive simply because they don't know the area and they don't realize that the road doesn't go through. And so they were looking to see if there was an opportunity for signage that said, and I don't know what the road is, like no outlet, no through road, no, I'm not sure what that sign would be in order to post at that road.
No outlet is typically what you see now.
You want to make that motion, Denny?
To make motion, just need direction.
Motion.
Motion? I'd like to make a motion to have the staff look into Jordale Street to lower the speed limit.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
And I have one other thing I'd like to bring up. Howard Lake Drive, its speed limit is 35. You go down into Forest Lake and it's 40. So we kind of made a speed trap there without knowing it. I'd like to have that speed limit brought up to 40 on Howard Lake to coincide with what's on the other end on 8th, or is it 11th Avenue, or whatever it is in Forest Lake.
I didn't think we had an option when we changed the speed limit. I thought it had to be 35.
I'll have to take a look at the rural residential designation that we established there.
And it's a county road. In Forest Lake, it's a county road, and it turns to a city road also.
Well, not on this side of the bridge it is, it's still a city road.
Sure.
Yeah, it's county road when it crosses the bridge, I'm sure of that, I'm not positive, that's why I only drive the road twice, 3 times a day, so I don't pay much attention.
Yeah. Not enough time, so.
In my little yellow car, I think that's 40 miles an hour, that's a good speed to go.
How many tickets have you gotten?
Don't put that on the record.
Too late.
Oh, I have a few things. So, on August 1st, the Sunrise Water Management Organization had a public hearing on their water management plan, and there was a grand total of 0 people who showed up, so it's now been submitted to Bowser for approval. That is one that we looked at earlier. So I think they have a 60-day review period. So that's the news from that group. And then I think a number of us went to that tech corridor grand opening. That was actually really exciting. Went to the 3 residences in Columbus that participated in National Night Out, and that was really fun. And I was really, really happy to be at each of those places. How much, I actually didn't even know about this until you told us about it, Elizabeth. So how much promotion do we do of that, or is that typically done through the police and fire?
Yeah, the sheriff's department organizes it, so you have to, if you're going to have a neighborhood party, you have to go through the process, and you sign up your neighborhood. And I am not notified as to where the parties are until a week before. And once they notify me, I try to get it out to the council members and coordinate, make sure the sheriff's department or our deputy and the fire department know. And usually we're pretty good in letting all the different entities know, because the different parties sign up and indicate who they want to attend. So I'm not sure exactly how they get the word out about each party, or that it's National Night Out for that matter.
Well, I think these 3 have been doing it for a number of years, so they probably know about it, but I'm just wondering how we might be able to get the word out in case there's other neighborhoods that would like to do it. I don't know if that's something we can maybe put on the neighborhood site next year, or just kind of let people know.
Okay.
This is a really nice gathering.
And they would just contact the sheriff's office to sign up, is what I'm understanding. So yeah, we could put something out saying, contact the sheriff's office
Yeah,
if you
I
want.
think that's a good idea, yeah. So we had a meeting today with the seniors on the senior center, the ongoing discussion about the facility and what we'd like to potentially work towards a kind of an agreed upon use for them, and whether or not the city might open that center up for a broader use. So we're still actually having good discussions with them about that. I think everything's going in the right direction there. And then last, stopped by and visited Fastenal Viking Safety, which is one of our applicants, their site in Vadnais Heights, to just get a better sense of what their business is. And that was actually really helpful too. I was glad that we had a chance to take a look at that and talk to the owner. So when he comes forward, I'll have a better idea of what it is that he actually is selling.
Nothing to report.
Shelley? And I have nothing either. So let's go to the city administrator's report. I'm sorry, public information coordinator report.
No report tonight.
City administrator's report?
I have 2 things on the agenda. I'm going to take them out of order. The first item I have is I received an application from Thornbeck Preserve Phase 2. We have approved their preliminary plat several weeks ago, and they've indicated now that they need a drainage and utility easement vacation. One of the very first steps is to set a public hearing for the intent to vacate a drainage and utility easement. So on page A43, in order to move their application forward so that we can actually have a public hearing on September 11th. You have this resolution before you, and it's just simply setting the hearing for this vacation for that plat. The vacation Exhibit A shows you what easement they would like to vacate, and their intent is to when we do the plat, they're going to replat them on the new plat. So they want the current ones to be vacated. The new plat will rededicate the drainage and flowage easements in the appropriate spot. And if you look, it's a very long legal description.
What's the resolution number?
1920.
20. Motion, resolution 1920, setting a public hearing for the drainage and utility easement vacation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
The second item that I have on the agenda this evening is a city planner update. Our planner, Dean Johnson, was with the city from 1997 to 2018, and he did retire back in December of last year. And in our organizational meeting, we did appoint an interim city planner, and that was contracted with TKDA. It was on a month-to-month basis. And then during that time, we created a position, which is a city planning technician position at 28 hours per week, where 24 hours were dedicated to admin and 4 hours to public works. And I'm happy to say it's working out very well. Ben has done a great job. He's jumped right in and has really tried to make his way in the different topics that we're covering. When we hired him, we indicated to him that we would have the opportunity for a more senior planner, for him to have a mentor and coaching as he was fresh out of school and needed that opportunity to gain experience. And so we've, over the past 3 or 4 months, looked at perhaps issuing an RFP for services, and then looking at overall the different services that could be provided by other contractors. And then this opportunity came before us, and so I come before you today with this opportunity. And both the mayor and I had an opportunity to speak with Dean Johnson about mentoring and offering consultant services for a limited amount of time, which would be about a year. And after describing what I was looking for to Dean, he indicated to me that he would really like the opportunity to provide a mentor and coaching to our new city planning technician. He really feels that after his 40 years, this would be a good segue to training a new person. So in looking at the workload and mentoring schedule, because Dean and I have talked about how would we implement this, what would we do, my recommendation is that we increase the city planning technician position from 28 hours to 32 hours, effective immediately, and that we, reinitiate the contract and appoint Dean Johnson as our city planner. And also thank Merritt Clapsmith for serving as the interim planner. She kind of jumped in and helped us out for the 6 months, and we truly appreciate that.
So you want
Questions?
Ben increased his hours from 28 to 32, you said?
Yes.
And you want to hire somebody else to mentor him. Why do we want to increase his hours? I don't understand why we got a city planner at town of 4,000 people. I don't quite get that. I mean, why are we increasing his hours if we're hiring somebody else to help him?
Well, when you're mentoring and coaching someone, you're doing that at the same time. So, you know what I mean, if you're looking over and you're looking at applications, the time that it takes is really a side-by-side kind of opportunity in order to teach someone how to do that. And so in any professional service, whether you're an engineer or attorney, you have this type of scenario where you have people who have just graduated and they have a senior person who helps them along the way, guides them, leads them down the road. You have this in the fire department. You have a rookie firefighter, you send them to training, and again, you pair them up with others and they train. So it's a model that's used in lots of different areas. And in this case, we started Ben out at 28 hours. He's used every one of those hours. What I've gone over with him is more process, and that's something that Dean did not do. So what Ben is doing now is me delegating things that I do, because quite frankly, I don't have enough hours to do what I'm supposed to do. And so Ben has taken over, and again, he's put his best foot forward, trying to absorb and be a sponge, to learn how to do public hearing notices, how to answer all the questions, answering questions about accessory buildings, and all the questions that I answer for the zoning code and processing permits. I can't explain to you why Columbus is so busy, but we processed 35 applications last year, over 550 building permits. I understand we're a small community, but that's the paper that we're pushing through this office, and you need time to do that. So every building permit goes through zoning. And prior to Jeff coming on board, and now Jeff has resigned, I literally looked at every single building permit, and now I just don't have the time in order to do that. So that's what's, you know what I mean? Ben, although he's not doing building permits right now, he's taking the other permits off my plate, so.
So Elizabeth, it's correct. I mean, the 4 hours that we're adding on is dedicated time for training and mentoring.
Yes.
In addition to the 28 hours that he's actually performing the technician duty. And the technician job is not the same as the city planner job. So essentially, Dean is doing kind of two things. He's doing the mentoring, but he's also assuming the higher level responsibility that Merit was providing to us in the past. Is that correct? Better way to- Okay.
And as you heard earlier today in the audit, the reason why we were over 300,000, as indicated, were through the reimbursables. And that's because we had that much planner, attorney, and engineer services that we were providing to process all of those permits. And it was although it was a pass-through, and that's why she was showing it on the revenue and expense side, that's how much work we produced for that year.
And that was 2018,
That was 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah,
2019.
we're beyond the numbers at this point.
How long do you think this is going to keep up, this type of?
Well, we really hope that it's going to continue, because we're finishing the bridge project. We're, thinking that, as you heard, we signed a closing date, for Hy-Vee. We're anticipating the apartment building, that application has come in. That's a pretty big application. And closing on that parcel. So I think there's lots of good things kind of coming in as far as development. And I meet with developers now every week. And so whether it's on Lake Drive or in the Freeway District, we have more interest now than we have in the prior 5 years.
Good thing, it does seem like we do have.
It is a good thing.
And
The limitation of having Dean be here for a year to mentor, is that because you think that then Ben will be qualified to do most of the work that he's been mentored?
I talked to Dean about this, and he said, when you're training a person and you know what I mean, after you spend a little time, you'll see where they excel and where you have to spend more time. And in this case, we have two different things kind of going on. We have the applications, and then we have the comp plan amendment. So you have ordinance amendment work that we're going to be doing, and then we have the development. So at this point, we're looking at two different things that he's going to be learning about as far as city planning goes. And he said he will evaluate at 6 months and then evaluate at a year and then let us know exactly where we stand. So depending on what comes in, will then determine his experience. And so I can't tell you what's going to come in the next year. and we'll know after a year whether we have to continue on and maybe not this as much mentoring. But in any given field, it's generally 3 years before you're up and running from out of school to where you feel you have enough experience, but you need less in year 3 than you did in year 1.
And is Dean not going to go adios at the end of a year?
You know, I don't think he will. I just think at this point, that's, you know what I mean, he felt like, you know, that he would look at a year, come up with a plan for a year, and then evaluate it at that time, so we can see where we're at.
And hopefully in a year, we're still so busy.
Yeah.
Applications that you need.
Hopefully we'll be.
And again, if the reverse happens and the market continues its downward trend, there might be nothing going on next year. You'll wish you needed him and you don't need him. So I guess we have to take advantage of the opportunity.
And if I can add, your revenues are up in the building department, so to the extent that any of those responsibilities, you know, morph into building related, you've got revenues there.
And then, Elizabeth, isn't the hourly rate that Dean is charging less than what we were paying for the interim also?
Yes.
So there's, I mean, a little savings there too.
And again, you had told me that most of his work was passed through,
Dean's consultant work is passed through, yes.
so.
I take it back. Ordinance work is not passed through.
Ordinance work is not, but the
Yes.
rest is, or much of the rest is.
Yes.
So it's not, I know Jeff's concerned about watching the
I'm
bottom
always
line.
concerned about money.
And we all are, but on the other
I know,
hand,
I know.
every week, every month that a project is delayed because you don't have the staff to do it is longer before the tax money starts coming in. And
I realize there's a lot of development, we need to help right now.
good,
It's a good situation to be in. I'll say it a second time now.
maybe, hope it lasts. All right, who wants to make the motion? It's actually on here.
Yes.
So I'll move to approve the recommendation of the Personnel Committee to change the city planning technician hours from 28 to 32 hours per week, effective immediately.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And then the next one, right below it.
So I'll also move to approve the recommendation of the Personnel Committee to appoint Dean Johnson as a city planner, effective immediately.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And you know what that means? We get eggnog for Christmas again.
Oh, yeah.
I have nothing further in my report.
All right. Well, that's really good news, I think. Good fortune, and it's going to work. All right, announcements and reminders. City Council Workshop, Budget 2019 is the 28th at 4 to 6 p.m. Planning Commission meeting is the 21st at 7 p.m. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.